my people as far as doing the retaliation, and what is the perception and reality I am giving them. Yes, I took the Mali civilization back in Kemet, and if everybody doesn't know what Kemet is, it is the real word of Africa. Africa is a Greek term. They switched the word so that we may not know who we are specifically. Kemet is black. That's what Africa is currently right now, or what it's called today. So that's where the Mali civilization came from. Why we can't be like Mali? Mali, they was great traders in commodities, gold, sugar, and silver. It was very, very instrumental in trade, and it was very, very, very keen on that. That's how they became prominent within the civilization. Then you have the Mayan civilization, which was great builders. They were able to go ahead and structure their neighborhoods and structure their buildings and their homes in a certain specific way so that whether it be whether it's somebody attacking them in their actual civilization or their tribe, it's going to be a bit difficult for you to even get in and get out because they're going to get you. They know how to build their own communities and protect themselves from others, from outsiders. So, with that being said, on top of all of that they've done, they reinvested back into their community and they created their own banks, their own laws, specifically paralegal people that actually learned the actual laws so they can conduct themselves in a structural manner to be civilized as a prominent civilization. We're not doing that. We're just learning or taking on what we see on TV and just emulating it back into the streets, and you see where that's going. That's all we're doing. If we were to switch that mindset around, actually switch around our civilization and actually teach our kids and educate them on who they really are, then you're going to start seeing the difference in the actual civilizations and communities of more scientists, more lawyers, more doctors, more educators, more teachers, so on and so forth. So, to bring that all into conclusion, for example, you're a young man. Do you have a business or a business mind that you want to go ahead and do in the future or what?
I'm an IT technician on the side do artist development.
For music, right?
Yeah.
All right, beautiful. So you do artist development. You can make that into an actual company specifically as far as using that artist development and putting it within personal relations and getting to know how to network with other companies or other artists outside and so on and so forth, correct?
Right.
All right, so you can LLC that, right? And make it legitimized. Okay. And on top of that, as you're legitimizing your company, you can go ahead and get people to actually build their trust and safety in you as a black man, owning your own business in artist development, and actually develop real musical artists. Would that be something I'm on track with, or I'm a little off with, or that's the whole point I'm trying to really make, the importance of what that is, because if you're teaching people artist development, how to develop themselves as a real musical artist, and not just copying or sending out the wrong message back into our black men and children and women, you have real artists. You have another Michael Jackson on your hands. You have another Whitney Houston on your hands. You have another Marvin Gaye or Curtis Mayfield, real artists. I have okay, let me go to recent. If I were to go hip hop, I could do Nas. Okay, I'm sorry. I can go down the line right now. Okay. Nah, but seriously, it's the purpose of actually going back and investing back into his company because he's going to be developing and teaching children how to make real music, how to be real artists, how to carry themselves in public, in front of the media, so that the perception when a black child is looking at that adult and like, wow, they look cool, not just because of the jewelry, but because of how they carry themselves. Not because of how the clothes they wear, the Gucci or anything, but because they're wearing a certain clothes, but they don't know what that clothes is because they're wearing another black-owned business clothing on top of their body versus a Gucci or a Louis that does not care about our community whatsoever. So that's the real importance I'm really trying to bring into the actual community to actually understand the importance of building and investing back into your own black businesses. All right, so just to end on that note, what I want to go ahead and do is call up Desmond Bescom, and what he's going to go ahead and speak on is provide us a presentation and bring everything as far as everything together, what we all spoke on, into one whole presentation, and he's going to bring it to you right now. All right, thank you.
Give me 1 second, guys.
You could have left it on the tripod. I was going.
Memory.
Okay. Give us one moment. We had to switch over the memory card inside the main camera.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you again for coming. I really appreciate that. Now, what I'm going to go ahead and talk about is a few topics. I'm going to give you the research behind what it is that we're talking about. So I know we had a couple of people that talks about the vision in the long term, but we're going to talk about right now and what's happening with our community and why we are imploding, unfortunately. Everybody heard the divide and conquer before, right? You think that's what's happening with the state of the African American right now? And when I say African American, you can say African, African American, whichever one you want to choose, because at the end of the day, we're all the same people, right? We derive from Africa, or our ancestors were brought here. So if I say African or African American, interjectionally, just know I mean the same thing when I say it. So what we're going to talk about is solid money movement, and we'll teach you where it's derived from, how we came with the terminology for it, and how we're depicted amongst other ethnic groups as well. Now, what we're going to talk about is the chain of events in recent history that has gotten us to where we are today. Secondly, historical movements. In order for us to move forward, we have to know our history, right? We have to know what was done, what was successful, what was unsuccessful, so we don't repeat the same thing. And eventually, the plan that we do currently have in motion that we would love for you to participate with, so that we're able to move as a unit. All right, so what's happening now? 2014, we have Dontre Hamilton in Milwaukee, Eric Gardner, New York, John Crawford III in Dayton, Ohio. We have Michael Brown Jr. in Ferguson, Missouri, Ezell Ford, Florence, California, Dante Parker, Victorville, California, Tanisha Anderson in Cleveland, Akai Gurley, Brooklyn, New York, Tamir Rice, Cleveland, Rumaine, Brisbane, Phoenix, Jerome Reed, Bridgeton, New Jersey. That was just some of the names of people who have died in the year 2014 as a result of police brutality, who are unarmed or had a toy weapon that people perceive, that the police perceive as an actual violent weapon. Let's move to 2015. We have Matthew Abijadi, Jeremy Leff. We have, I can't even see the name, Michaela Thomas. We have Samuel Dubai, India Blaine, and 33 others that have died that year. Please forgive me on this. Of course, it's on the projector. It's a little smaller than I had on the original screen. But nonetheless, there's 33 additional people that have died in 2015, and there's most recent event, as recent as what? We're still in July, right? This month alone, we've had 2 deaths that have been publicized. Alton Sterling, Philando Castile. But that's the only 2 that we've seen in our recent memory. But there's been 19 more killings of people of color in this past year alone, and we're only halfway through. Now, if you look at the numbers, this is a fact of fatal black shootings by officers for unarmed individual or toy weapons. Last year, during the middle of the month, middle of the year, we were at 18. This year so far, we're at 21. Now, at the end of the year, in 2015, we were at 43 deaths. If we continue with the same projection, we're expected to have 54. So that's a 16% increase based on the current trend that we have from last year to this year. It looks like we're going to have more deaths than we had last year. Now, how do we do about the next year and the next year after that? And so, we'll be at 100 people, and who was held accountable for it? I don't know about you, but I really don't consider paid leave accountability for lives being lost, right? And in addition to that, we're hearing stories about people being jittery or they were nervous, but last time I checked, our people were trained. Our police officers were supposed to be trained to handle situations like that, right? So how long are we going to let them off the hook? Because at the end of the day, if we use that same excuse, we all know where that's going to go. Nowhere. So let's talk about historical movements, analysis of our ancestral path to justice. Now, these are some recent historical movements that was in the 1900s. We have the Civil Rights Movement. Everybody know that's familiar, right? Familiar with that. What do we know about the Civil Rights Movement? Anybody want to volunteer and tell me, what do you know? Other than Martin Luther King was the face of the Civil Rights Movement. What else?
It was,
Go ahead.
it was the push to pretty much have everything equal, whether black, white, regardless of race. It was more so to make everyone equal.
You're absolutely right. That was the Civil Rights Act of 1964 to kind of remove the lines of discrimination. So it was no longer legal to prevent from providing a product or service due to certain criteria, race, age, gender, etc. All right? Now, anything else we can remember about the Civil Rights Movement that we know about? All right. It was peaceful. Very true. A lot of marching, a lot of sit-ins, a lot of boycotts. Correct. Anything else?
Don't be scared.
I mean, if there's nothing else, it's probably nothing else. I think they got it. You know what I mean? So we look at it from this way. The actions that took, first of all, the cause of it. Why did it start in the first place? It was because it was to eliminate segregation and achieve equality non-violently. So yes, their actions were economic boycotts. They had sit-ins. They had black voter registration drives, anti-segregationist demonstrations. Those are what happened. Yes, it was very peaceful. As a result of that, they got a lot of attention, front page media. They had international attention, increased KKK activity. Not all attention is good attention, right? And as far as that civil rights movement in 1964, are we satisfied with that?
No.
Some would argue that the civil rights movement was actually a failure. How successful do we feel that the civil rights movement was? Wow, this is what we read about in our books. Y'all know we talk about this in our books more than we talk about another movement like that. Malcolm X actually had the parallel to the civil rights movement, right? Why do you think that is? That's what they want us to know. Be peaceful, be humble.
Be okay with it.
Ask for the ability to do things, as opposed to doing it yourself. Let's talk about another movement, one that was manifested from the civil rights movement. We have Black Power movement. This was in the 1960s. Now, the reason for this is because it was discontent over stalled civil rights progression. You know what that means? We're not getting things done fast enough. So because of we're going to stop being peaceful, now we're going to start making more statements. We're going to do things a little bit differently from Martin Luther King's vision, and now we're going to go ahead and be a little bit more aggressive with our approach. But what happened with that? Their actions were adoption of all black leadership in civil rights groups. The outcome was just outcries, sense of loss and despair in black community, independence and separatism rather than integration. Would you consider Black Power movement being very successful? Now we understand that there was some infiltration going on. There was some government spies and ops and everything trying to get in there to probably prevent this from happening, so I get that. But those are some that were not as successful as the ones that I'm going to talk about before. Now these are farther along the line. These are our ancestors' ancestors. This is historical movements. We're going to talk about abolitionist movement of 1800s. Everybody heard about the Underground Railroad, right?
Yeah.
Who are the faces of the Underground Railroad? Harriet Tubman, right? Frederick Douglass. Okay, so let's look at the difference in this movement compared to the other ones we just discussed. The goal was emancipation of slaves. What did they do? They created the Underground Railroad. Anybody know what the Underground Railroad was? What was it?
It's like a chain of communities who would help.
Correct.
Help escape slaves.
She's an educator, by the way, guys. That's how she knows this information. That's
I'm not
that's absolutely right. So the Underground movement, the Underground Railroad was more so different safe havens that the slaves would go to progress from the south to the north, right? Now, let me ask you this question. Was there any marches? Was there any boycotts? Any sit-ins?
Nah.
What was it? Action. I'm not going to wait on somebody to allow me to do something anymore. But I'm going to take matters into my own hand, and that's a demonstration from the Underground Railroad. Let's talk about the next one, the Niagara Movement. Everybody heard of W.E.B. Du Bois? One of the co-founders of NAACP? Okay. So they had the same approach, but it was just different. Later on, this was in about 1905. Racial reconciliation, equality after the Jim Crow laws. Black migration to the north in the 1920s. As a result, they had relief and recovery programs, housing and employment, seats in state legislatures, Military desegregation and of course the NAACP all manifested from that. And again, that action was black migration to the north in the 1920s. So it's not more about us asking for permission at this point, because clearly we've seen where that's gotten us. How many people, how many organizations have you seen that's been begging for change, knocking on the door of the politician's office, but nobody's answering? There's a reason for that, and I'm going to explain to you why. And this is what we're talking about, whether it's Black Money Matters movement, this is what's going on right now. And solving the economic oppression in Black America. Now, liquid money. Anybody ever heard of the terminology? Remember, y'all know Damon Dash with Jay-Z, where he used to have a bottle of whatever. You are music, so you know Rock Nation and all that. You know what I'm saying? Rockefeller. Okay. So Damon Dash, he's a music mogul. They call him. He actually have a show coming out, I think, on Washington. But anyway, the ideology, he has a few Jewish businessmen, right? Like he has some colleagues, not necessarily colleagues, but just other businessmen that he knows that are of other ethnicities. And he shared a little in an interview how they perceive us. What it is they say, this was the Jewish businessman quote, the same way that water falls out of a man's hands, money typically seeps out of a black person's hands the same way. Your community gets money and immediately gives it all away to people who are not black, and they see this as a business opportunity. Look around you right now and tell me how many black business owners do you have that own simple things. Beauty supply stores, quick stops around the corner, your local mom and pop store. Tell me how many people can you count that own something in our community? That's not a rhetorical question. If you want to answer, please.
Not a lot.
Not a lot, right?
No, I'm gonna say there are some, but you have to search for them.
I'm glad you brought that up.
I wanna say that like Birds passed a message that we need to do a better job of saying, like I was looking for a masseuse. I don't want a black masseuse to put money in the sister pocket.
Absolutely.
I can't find one to save my life right now.
I'm glad you brought that up. That's a great point. Thank you so much. And thank you for coming, by the way. So it's a shame because of the fact that what they do, strategize. Like they will go together, say if there's an Indian guy or what have you, and they want to open up a store in America, right? Their strategy is, we're going to lend you this money as a community. We're going to give you the money to open up a couple of stores and implant them where? In a black community, right? This is true. And the reason why we're going to do this is because they're going to come to you as opposed to going to their own. And we'll talk about some of the psychological effects that it actually has, that why we do the things that we do. Because it is programming, believe it or not. All right. So these are some facts in regards to our spending habits as a black community. First things first, we spend 30% more of our total income. However much you make salary, 30% of that is spent more than another ethnic group. We earn $20,000 less on average in the average household. So we're spending more, but we're earning less. We have business people in here, we know that's not a good thing, right? Your profit and loss is probably negative every year. All right. Earn 87% of all annual retail spending. You know, I even feel a little bad today that I'm even wearing Ralph Lauren because I know that's not black, but I'm trying to promote this. So right now, I'm a part of that 87%, and I'm pretty sure you guys can look at your outfits and say the same thing. So we have to change that. Well, I can't really think of any too much black-owned businesses.
Besides FUBU.
Besides food.
That's not even. That's
Yeah.
I still rock Shaq. It's fine. Still rock Shaq.
It's sold by Walmart?
Sold by Walmart.
FUBU now. So it's been sold to. All right. 8 more annual trips to the mall than any other group. Anybody been to the mall this weekend? Oh, today. Look. Jocelyn, you been to the mall today? All right. 3 fewer trips to the grocery or warehouse stores. You know, when you buy things in bulk, lasts longer, and over time, you spend less for it for the amount that you're receiving. But we have a short-term mindset right now, so we'll get the cheaper, not realizing that in the long run, it actually benefits us a little bit more. 9 times more in hair care and beauty products, which is a $9 billion a year industry.
But we have to.
You feel like you have
a
to.
little more in our hair.
That's perfectly fine. But the thing is, I'm going to get to this, why spending is okay. But what the problem is what I'm going to allude to. Now, 9 times more. I just want to point out a quick fact on that. That's a $9 billion a year industry. Guess how much of the market share that we make up in our spending on beauty supply stores? Less.
3%.
We have black business owners that own beauty stores. That's 2% of that $9 billion, right? But we spend, black people spend, out of the whole $9 billion, 89% of that is from black people.
Wow.
So we're contributing to this $9 billion heavily, almost what, 8, maybe 7 point something billion dollars. But we only own 2% of that, so technically, only 2% of that is going back within the community. That's a staggering number if you ask me, because I know my women love hair products, right? Hair care and all that, especially weave and anyway. Household expenses are 79.8% of the average income, and most of them are rented. So we don't even own our homes too much. We actually paying somebody else to live in their home. More aggressive consumers of media. 37% more television watched. Don't you know why they don't have like commercials of Lamborghinis and Ferraris and those high-end cars? You know why? Because the people who can afford them are not sitting there watching TV. I mean, that's the truth. So, 6 times more likely to buy a Mercedes with only 1/3 of the income. I mean, we made it. Once we got a Mercedes, whatever C, S, class, whatever, I don't even know the Mercedes like that. But we feel like we've arrived at that point, but when we realize it, we're probably spending above our means because somebody else, like somebody in the white ethnic group, they actually kind of have 2/3 more of the income that we have, and they own the same car. 55% of us don't even have a bank account. And 13% of us make up the population in the U.S., but only 7% own small businesses. So it's kind of hard, like Amy was saying, to find those locations where we're not taking the initiative. Let's be real. What are we taught when we grow up? We're taught to go to school, right?
Go to
Get
college.
education,
Get a real good job.
go to college, all that, and then get what?
A job.
They're not having those same conversations in other ethnic groups. They're actually teaching their kids to be a boss, so that other people like us can work for them. At the end of the day, when you look at it, what happened? This nation has been built off of our backs. It's planned to be, unless we make a change about it. So these are some facts. How do we feel about these facts that I just put to your
Attention.
brain, your membranes? How do we feel about that? Feel how we feel?
Not enough.
That okay? We want to keep this going?
Not at all.
Because it will if we don't stop. Like you saw the other movements that I mentioned, them who make the initiative first, and then everybody else applied once they realized that we weren't worrying about what they were talking about anymore. Let's talk about money circulation within the black community. Right here is a chart that shows days of money circulation prior to spending. Shayna, you mentioned this. You said you heard this, right?
Yeah.
This is right here is a visual. And you can look at this and see where we are. I mean, you can just visualize.
What color is our little?
Exactly. You can't even
Is there
see
a
the color. This is supposed to be black, by the way. This
Oh.
little part right here. You just can't see it because it's so small. Now, the Asian community, they spend their money within their community for an average of 30 days before it's spent outside of their community. Jewish, 20 days on average. Caucasian, 17 days.
Elaborate about what you mean by 30 days.
They find businesses in their community, and they continue to spend in their community. So that's like a priority for them. So it's not until an average of 30 days before they actually find another ethnic group to spend money on for whatever product or service. So the thing is, for us, it's 0.25 days. You know what that equates to in hours? 6 hours. You ever had a paycheck, and then by the time you, probably about 30 minutes later, your paycheck gone. Now you just work 2 weeks for a paycheck to last for a couple of hours.
Before you
You're
get
not
it, right?
alone. This is actually America, Black America, period. So we have to do something to change this. And the reason why, you might ask why, like what does that matter, right? Anybody tell me why you think that might matter? Or what's the correlation between that and anything else? Layton?
What you guys were talking about earlier, generational wealth. If we're spending our money as soon as we get it with everyone else, we're never going to be able to continue generational wealth.
That's it.
We'll
Can't
never
pass
build it,
anything
we'll
down.
never attain it, we won't get to it.
Correct.
And then what are our savings look like? if there aren't any savings?
That's a great question. That's a great question. Even if you're not gonna spend, at least save, right? And if you are gonna spend it on ourselves. So this spending is okay because spending is what keeps the economy going. But the problem is where we're spending is the question, because that doesn't keep our economy within an economy going. Wealthiest group per household. This was 2012. That's the most recent I could find. Asian community. You think that's a coincidence? Per household, their household brings in $68,636 per year for their entire household. You have the Caucasian, which is at $57,000 on average a year, and you have African Americans, which is about $39,000 on average. So we spend more, but we make less. And part of that, the correlation is direct to the amount of time that our money circulates within our community. Now you might be wondering how or why, how does that relate to each other? There's an economic principle that's called Keynesian multiplier, right? It was introduced in 1930. Now it shows that any government spending brought about cycles of spending that increase employment and prosperity regardless of the form of spending. For example, if a $100 million government project was there, whether to build a dam or a dig and refill the giant hole, it might pay $50 million in labor costs alone. The workers then take that $50 million minus the average savings rate that Amy was talking about and spend it at various businesses. These businesses now have more money to hire more people to make more products, leading to another round of spending. This idea was at the core of the New Deal and the growth of the welfare state. So the idea is the fact that our money multiplies the more that we keep it inside of our community. Anybody ever heard of compound interest before?
Mm-hmm.
We know how that works, right? You get money, you get an interest. Now, the money you got plus the interest is now the principal. Then you get more interest on top of that, and then more interest. The next thing you know, you made a whole bunch of money off of the amount, a small amount that you might have started. If you look at Warren Buffett, you're familiar with Warren Buffett, one of the richest men in America or in the world, period. He talks heavily about compound interest because it is so important from its multiplier effect. And it's the same thing. You keep your money in, you add more money. How do you add more money? You develop businesses to create products and services that people need. And as a result, this happens. Then you become one of the wealthiest per household. Let's look at our buying power. We make 13% of the population that we discussed, but $1.1 trillion buying power. American GDP is probably around 13, 14 trillion, and we contribute 1.1 of that. As a matter of fact, an author, Stacey M. Brown, for Big Spender, Small Investor, says that if Black America counted as an independent country, its wealth would rank 11th in the world. Not just in the nation, the U.S. alone, but we have enough buying power to rank 11th in the world. African Americans continue to squander their vast spending power, relegating blacks to economic slavery instead of financial freedom, according to several consumer reports detailing the use of cash in the black community. How do we feel about this fact right here?
I believe it.
You believe it? You think you can do something to stop it?
Not
I
by
think so.
myself.
Not by yourself. That's the key. So it takes all of us. It takes a community of people to do it. Why do we think that is? Anybody have an idea why we don't seem to stick together? You know?
We in competition with each other.
Why? Why do you think we in competition?
Because it's built that way.
Please explain.
Well, I mean, ultimately, from jump, let's just say the Benz. You feel like you gotta get a Benz, so you got a C class. The man next to you is gonna be like, I gotta one up him, and he's gonna get a S class. You know what I mean? And
Why would we like that?
I think
That
this was
divided company.
a long time ago when I looked at this. I think it was the Willie Lynch letters or something like that. And basically, the gist I got from it is that back when our ancestors were in slavery or whatnot, those people, they were very smart. They had to figure out a way because our people we're inherently stronger. We're faster, as you can see, like physically and mentally, we are such a stronger people, but yet we seem so weak, and I think it's because that's been ingrained in us. So like the perfect example I use with people is like house slaves and outside slaves, like cotton.
Separation.
Yeah, cotton pickers. Like if they separated us, I think to affect us mentally. So you have these people who, they start out together, but now you put them in competition
Yep.
with each other
Mhm.
over who's in the house and who's outside.
Mhm.
And I relate that directly now to, you know, like in our community, our women, we're in competition with each other because I'm lighter than you, I'm darker than you. Our men look at us differently because your hair is longer, or your hair is thicker than hers. Like, these little things separate us. Or the men, you got on those shoes. They were, you know, those shoes were made and sold by a black man, but I'm gonna knock you because I got these Gucci's on. Like,
Yep.
little things, like small things separate us. And I think
Absolutely right.
that's a big problem.
You're absolutely right. So this is all about programming. I mean, a lot of it has to do with that. We have deep-rooted issues that we probably need psychological help with. I mean, honestly, because you have to think. I'm serious.
It's true.
I'm serious. It's like a lot of things that we've had. It's like trauma. You ever seen people get PTSD and all of that? That they have to go through like a therapeutic phase, and we've never been through that with 400 years after 400 years of slavery. So those mentalities get passed down from generations to generations, and unfortunately, it has clearly affected us to this day. So that has a lot to do with it. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I want to say something to that. Let me add to this. Like, when you talk about consumers and the position that we're in as consumers, like we spend more than we earn, and the way that this capitalist system is built to target, you know, certain people to exploit. Right? They target all types of people, but they target us. But we're the least ones to be able to afford what they're targeting us with. So, being that we don't have the money to spend it, even though we get it some kind of way when we spend it. Plus the fact that we haven't been used to having it. You see what I'm saying? So when you're not used to having it, you want to keep it to yourself and spend it and not really share much of it until you develop, you know, over time, used to having money, used to having, you know, wealth. So I think that too, added to what other people said, is the reason why.
It's true.
Let me carry off of that.
Yes, sir.
As any young man, I'm sure the understanding is not that you're gonna live that long anyway. So you're not planning on holding money for future time frame because something's gonna happen. Something's gonna happen where you're not gonna make it. So it's you don't keep the money. There's no point in it. It's like I'm not living for the future. I'm living for now. Future's not promised, and to an extent, that's what they're showing us today anyway. You know what I mean? So, you know, for me to have a conversation with my son, it's kind of that situation. Whereas you got to kind of drill, you got to live for the future. You know what I mean? But I don't think that that's what the young black boys today are thinking.
Absolutely not. I mean, if you, yes, sir.
Sorry, just to add on, not to cut you off, but just to add on to what he was saying, and he has a point when he speaks on that little subject of just spend everything out because tomorrow's not promised to me or anything of that kind of lifestyle, and that's always been, I don't want to say taught, but in a sense, when you listen to music, you are learning. So it's always been taught in music. Biggie with Sky is the Limit. Some of the artists now, they always say, I live life to the fullest because tomorrow's not promised to me because of whatever lifestyle they was in before they got into the limelight. And it's like, why shouldn't the future be promised to me? I don't understand why it should not. I don't live your lifestyle. So
There's a song that's getting played probably 10 times a day on our stations by Rihanna and somebody else, and all she says the whole entire song is, ain't none of this is promised. And that's what, if you listen to that song 2 or 3 times, that's in your brain. Ain't none of it promised, forget it, just do whatever you want.
And the thing is, she don't believe that. She don't believe that herself.
Right, she just saying it.
Definitely does, because they want us to.
That's
It's
like
all
a big
about
effort
the
to install into your children. I kind of like practice what I preach with my kids. I make sure my kids listen to different types of music when they live in my house. You do what you want to do outside, but when you live in my house, I'm gonna install you something totally different. Because first of all, if you don't pray, you won't make it. If you don't trust in God, you're not gonna make it. So put your trust in God and listen to different terms of music. So you listen to Rihanna, or and your little kids listen to Rihanna and doing the twerk and jerk. That's all they're gonna do in life. Sit them down and have a talk with them. Just talk different things to your children. How to save money, how to put money aside, how to work.
This is
Now, I agree with her statement, but it's a contradiction of what's going on, is what I'm
You
saying.
mean like what we're
What,
media?
because I've had custody of my son since he was 2. You know what I mean? He's 17 now. You know what I'm saying? So I consistently have these conversations with him. But it's a contradiction of what the world is showing them
Right.
and what I'm teaching them. So I don't disagree with what you're saying, not at all. But I'm just saying, this is the mentality that they're not expected to make it.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, matter of fact, my son's best friend is Trayvon's stepbrother. Now that's close. And they both played football at Miramar for the Wolverines. So
Okay.
it's close. When it's that close, you start understanding, well, wait, this can't happen to me. When it's far away, you kind of like, you can block it out, but when it's that close, it's hard.
Right.
And I know that the focus of the group is more financial and money, but we're talking about like, as a community, how do we get out of this hole? Why are we here?
I'm glad you
And
brought it up.
yesterday, I had to go to the Family Dollar right here on, right over here by Academy of 05, whatever that is, by Bobby's. I went to Bobby's, I went to, Family Dollar. But Family Dollar is everywhere, like I need to buy stock at Family Dollar. They're building them from the ground up.
Yeah.
Like,
Fast,
brand new.
fast.
And everywhere you go. And when you walk in, there's like a recording and all activities being recorded and monitored. Like, as soon as you walk in the door, it's basically telling you, we still want to see you. Exactly, criminalizing you. So as a young child, if you walk into there, you're walking to the corner store. This is the closest store to where you live. Mind you, there are no fresh fruits and vegetables. I just want to throw that out there. In these Family Dollars, that's all over the place. There are none. So now you have this, now as a child, even, visually you're being programmed that like, people think I'm a thief. And I'm gonna come in here and I'm gonna buy these overpriced can of watered down string beans and call it healthy when I go home. So it's just like there's so many, it's just like an onion with layers of how are we here? So now it's just like, okay, well, how do you cut the onion to cook it,
So we can definitely open that up afterward because I'm glad you brought up on that. This has a lot to do with how to come up out of that. Let me ask you if you see any other ethnic groups being executed on television with a lack of respect for their community. This is a capitalist. It speaks for you before you do. So in order to empower yourselves and gain that level of respect that you need to where people are not exploiting you, looking at you as if your life is not worth anything, first of all, by financial empowerment. What you're doing by becoming a business owner, you're changing the environment for your community because you have a certain standard. You're creating businesses, you're creating labor that's going to take pride in what they're doing because they're the ones that's building up a future for their children. So now your kids got something to look forward to because you're the example now. Because now you've empowered yourself. When another man of another ethnic group walks in the door and then you humble, yes, master, I got to go to work. What level of pride does that show your son? You know what I mean? And don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with the working man. It's great. It's great to learn, but the idea should eventually be to be your own businessman. And that way you can kind of toot to the beat of your own. You know what I mean? So all of that plays a big part, but this is the first thing, something that we can control in the short term that has a long-term effect on the economic state of the African American individual. Everybody understand?
Yeah.
All right. So Valerie Reed, she's a 44-year-old sociologist and president and chief formulator of Valana Minerals, which is a company, not too familiar with what the company represents. Nonetheless, she's a scholar that says it's a mindset that the sugar is sweeter than ours, right? Grass is green on the other side. You've heard that terminology, right? We just feel like they have a better product than we do. Negative stigmas about black businesses being too pricey or offering service that is inferior and subpar to non-blacks. The mindset comes over from the days of segregation and slavery, like Shana discussed. In American culture, Caucasian European culture is still seen as the ideal in so many ways. If you get stuff from them, there's a certain level of respect that goes along with who you represent. And that doesn't happen with us, unfortunately. Social status levels allows us to interact with the dominant group And when a black business owner does something considered wrong, it's the first thing we do. The thought is that it's happened because they are black, but that same reasoning is not done with other groups. So we gotta stop putting each other down. Like for example, I even felt that for myself, you know, getting in here at 7 o'clock or what have you. I'm like, man, I said 6 o'clock. I know they're gonna people be like, man, black people can't do nothing right. Right? And I felt that. Honestly, I did. Personally. So if that happened anywhere else, we wouldn't say that. I mean, clearly they're not black, so we can't say that. But you're not gonna say, man, it's because they Asian, they be playing, man, or it's because of the fact that they white. We don't have that same thing. And I understand it's one thing to hold each other accountable, but it's another thing to bring each other down too. It's a negativity that you kind of preach into your people. Another thing, let's stop calling out people derogatory names. You know what I mean? I can't say it under the church. But let's start calling out people kings and queens and princes and princesses and stuff like that. If you're already doing that, that's awesome. But we got to kind of change the way that we treat each other in order for this to work as well. Now, any questions so far as I talk about the solution? I've talked about some of the problems, some of the facts and research. Now we do have a few set plans in place to help us come out of this, to empower individuals who might not have even had the courage or resources to go ahead and start their own business, but then maybe now we can help as a community. We plan to have this recurring, so that way you can bring more people to hear about the facts of our people. Obviously, united we stand type. First things first, next week, I'm pretty sure you guys have heard about it. You've probably been seeing it on social media. We do have an event. We're co-hosting the event for One United Bank. It's the nation's largest black-owned bank, right? What we are doing next week Saturday between 1 and 4, that was just updated so I could change the time, but it's between 1 and 4 p.m. There's a Bank Black Challenge going on. Challenge 20 of your friends to open a savings account. You need $100 minimum to do so. Now, as far as the savings account, you can do it online. You can do it in person. Hot 105 is going to be there, and the CEO of the bank is also going to be there as well. So obviously, we are making the very first movement by putting action behind what we are trying to do and the goals that we are trying to achieve. So we're taking our money out. I mean, you don't have to take out everything out of the account. It's up to you. But nonetheless, at least a minimum of 100, we want to try to make a move. They just did it in Los Angeles. I don't know if some of you guys have heard about
Chicago.
it. They did the same thing in LA. Now we're doing the same thing next week. And this is going to be at 3275 Northwest 79th Street. Anybody know where One United Bank is? May have passed it before.
For the Walmart.
About a Walmart. That is correct. So we would love it for your support. Bring as many people as you can out there because, again, this is the only way we're going to get attention. Now, we don't just want attention, but we also want to make a statement as well. And the only way to do that is by actions because they speak so much louder than words. Second thing, we talk about boycott. I'm pretty sure when everybody saw Alton Sterling down, all you got was text messages, chain letters talking about we're going to boycott this month, and next month, this and that. That's great, but how long does it last? One of the biggest issues with boycotts is this. When you boycott, it's great, but once you run out of that product or service at home, you got no choice. Nah, I gotta go to Walmart. My son need Enfamil. You know what I'm saying? Or something like that, to where now you have to break that commitment. But if we can transfer that and find those places in the black community that provide that same product or service, we'll never have to go to those major corporations again if we know how to find it in-house. So this would be an opportunity. We're going to try to have this as often as possible, once a month, and try to create a networking event between black entrepreneurs, business owners, consumers as well, so that we can find those businesses. And we're trying to create a centralized location, which we have done already. Create a network of black-owned businesses and supporters. Amy, you stated that earlier. You don't know where to find it, right? So we're building a platform that connects the consumers, the supporters, to the black-owned businesses. We're starting here in South Florida. It is called solidly.com. As you know, liquid money was the terminology, so it's solid money. Put the two together, solid. Yeah. So this is directory. You get it right? It makes sense, right? Directory for black-owned
You want to
business.
props for that one.
Yeah,
You came up with it.
I don't want to take that.
I get it.
So yeah, we're trying to create a network. We've done it. It's fully live, operational. And every month I want to have a featured business, black-owned business on there, so we can come in and kind of do a little video recording of who you are, talk about it in person or live on the camera, and then probably see you in action, mingling and kind of connecting with your consumers that are coming to the location, whether it's a shop or a service that you're providing, and then finally getting a little feedback from the community as well, just to see how they rate you and review. So on this website, you're able to do just that. You can rate, review, you can put the location of your business on there. You can put even advertisement. We actually encourage a promotion that you put on there that entices consumers to come to the site so that they can come to you. They can, whether you want them to be able to print it, whether you want them to just be like, hey, I saw the ad on this website, so this will obviously cause them to generate more business to you. Obviously, we want to make our people want to feel like they got over in some way. And the best way to do that is with a promotion or a discount or something. And provides information on events that might be coming up as well. Again, you guys put your email address and everything. We'll have a newsletter blasting, letting you know what's going on, what's currently in the community. And hopefully we'll get your support to continue to build this more and more. That way we'll have maybe this place packed one day, have to move somewhere else because more people are now joining in on the movement. And of course it also provides education and empowerment on black people. We'll be putting a lot of conscious information on there, kind of going back to the origin of African people, not just what they try to teach you in the textbook to make you feel like you were nothing but a helper, a mere slave, unfortunately. Sorry, Shane, I know you're an educator.
No, because that's something different that we're doing with our school too. We didn't want it to start at slavery.
Correct.
Like
Please don't.
Last year, it was our first year in existence, but we tried to expand it from February, Black History Month, and teach them this is not where you came from. You came from this place. Like, just one day I happened to ask the kids, where's Egypt? And they didn't know.
Yep.
So they didn't know that Egypt was in Africa.
So as soon as we finish, if you have little ones that you might be interested, she's an educator. You'll talk about it. I'll give you the platform to talk about a little bit about your school, because education is extremely important, right? Right or wrong. I think that it starts from there. And the earlier we can reach our children, the better. Because now they grow up knowing the truth and not just what America wants you to believe that you're worth. And of course, you won't have to suffer if you know where to channel your demand for goods and services. So that's the ideal. If you have business, Amy, like you said, you were trying to find like what, massage parlor type thing or something? Masseuse, yeah. And then of course we'll put the masseuse on there, and that way you know it has the map to show you like all the areas in that category where they are based on your location. You can find directions to them and everything. So that way we don't have to funnel our money outside of our community. And we're trying to make a statement, but the last step is very important. Commitment. This is the hardest step.
Definitely.
This is the hardest step, right? I mean, before anything else, commitment. We have to commit to each other, but we have to be examples. We can't give up. There's going to be monkey wrenches thrown in our path, everything, because obviously this is something that America does not want us to do. I can stress this enough, but they depend on that $1.1 trillion. Other ethnic groups move their families just to depend on that $1.1 trillion. It's time to take ownership of what we can control, which is where our money is being spent. And we also want to create a platform if there's anybody who's interested in starting a business, might not know how to do so, or may not have the resources. Please, get in touch with us. We have contact information. I don't have my business cards right now, but we'll create a couple of minutes to actually talk and exchange information so we can kind of discuss that, see what we have a need for, and then obviously try to build on it. There's strength in numbers. No more outcries that's really pretty much falling on deaf ears. We create our own universe. Commitment also helps to remove dependency on others to do things for us, and we empower ourselves to do it, and empower our future generations as well. And that's the key. Like you were saying, you want to leave your child something, right, to look up, look into, to look forward to build on, to work on. I would love to be able to leave my business to my son and let him carry on that legacy and leave that in the family so that we have something that we're known for, as opposed to my wealth stopping when I die and then nothing for my child to look forward to. Yeah, insurance policy is great, but it could be so much bigger than that. And as in closing, these are some quotes that are left by some moguls that are financial people in the black community. In America, you have almost no power if you don't own something. There is no pride in the platform on which you sit if it can be taken away from you on a second's notice. So you have been seduced into believing that you have real power when the truth is that you do not. If we never learn the value of supporting the black-owned business, we are always going to be disappointed. We are going to have the highest unemployment rates, the lowest wealth levels, and the greatest degrees of frustration. So, by the great Honorable Louis Farrakhan says, in order for us to grow as a people, we must realize this important fact, that our money is our power, and we cannot give it all away. All right, those are some things to leave you with. I look forward to seeing you all next week, Saturday. If not, if you can't make it, spread the word so other people can come. But this is supposed to be something very huge. So we'll love as much coverage, as much support from our community, so that we can show people that we mean business this time. All right, thank you all for your time. Hector, you